Yes, Chair, thank you. It's live.
Right, thank you. So welcome to the Finance and Resources Committee meeting. So today, the 16th of April. So I'm Councillor Tate, Chair of this committee. And we shall start with any apologies.
I've no apologies, Chair, thank you.
Yeah, so no apologies, but maybe just some for lateness for others to join us. Oh, there we go, we've got another one. So I'd like to welcome Ian Hughes to the meeting. So Ian is the new monitoring officer under a service level agreement with Calderdale Council, as approved by the authority's executive committee. So welcome Ian to our first meeting.
Thank you very much, Chair. Very pleased to be here. And as I said a moment ago, it's a shame we're not meeting you all in person, but content to do so virtually for the moment. Thank you.
Our time will come, hopefully sooner rather than later. Okay, so we move on to the minutes of the last meeting from the 5th of February 2021. So has anybody got any matters arising from those minutes? No, so can we take those as approved?
Move them, Chair. Seconded.
Thank you very much. So any urgent items?
No urgent items, Chair.
Thank you. So under admission of the public, agenda items E7 to E9 are for exclusion of the public due to possible disclosure of financial and business affairs. Is there any declarations of interest for any items on these papers? Take that silence as a no. So we shall move on to the first proper agenda item then, which is Smarter Working Programme update. And I believe Matt Walker is going to talk through this one for us. Hi, Matt.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. The purpose of this report is to update members on the progress of the Smarter Working Programme and the associated service improvements. And it's recommended that members note the content of the report. So the Smarter Working, or Lean Working, as it was originally called, was as a consequence of a number of drivers, but in particular it was around listening to our workforce through staff surveys, station visits, both formal and informal conversations, highlighted a concern and ultimately a dissatisfaction regarding often overly bureaucratic processes leading to wasted time and ultimately frustration across our workforce. The feedback was addressed and processed into a lean working proposal, which formed part of our IRMP and was submitted to the Fire Authority in 2018. The proposal was to undertake a research into lean methodology, which was to be used to increase and improve efficiency and effectiveness within the organisation based on 4 guided principles. Those principles were identification of processes which were critical and added value, identification and diagnosis of failure and waste, how we remove that waste, and ultimately develop our own internal capacity to improve and continuously improve effectiveness. An initial scoping exercise was undertaken and it was proved insufficient, that we had insufficient in-house experience and knowledge to undertake that review, and as a result we undertook a tender process to appoint a consultant to look at 4 key areas. Those 4 key areas were based on touch points, if you like, so processes that had an impact on all of the organisations, albeit we worked specifically with individual departments to allow those processes to be improved. The focus was on embedding and improving our quality and capacity of work, improving the user experience, which was deemed a real issue with regards to our staff survey, and probably most importantly, embedding the process of lean working into our normal day-to-day work. And that was around traditionally looking at our processes and challenging those traditional processes, making us more intuitive through education and also supporting us through that change, which was significant. So with regards to the 4 areas, the first one was property repairs. The feedback that we had was that often station-based personnel in particular were frustrated that minor areas of work took far too long to undertake, and they thought they could do a lot of that themselves, but due to our processes and sometimes health and safety practices, we weren't able to do that. So the Smarter Working works with Property, who were fantastic throughout the process, to look at how we could remove some of those barriers and ultimately improve the way that we do things. That reduced, luckily, the waiting time for repairs from 23 to 4 days, which was fantastic, and that was as a result of reducing the contractor workforce by 24%, which was great. Some of the examples of that was, without doubt, real ownership on station with regard to their workplaces, and they did things like moving walls to improve contamination or decontamination areas, adjustments to training facilities, which made them far more immersive, cleaning gutters using our aerial platforms, changing some of the layouts of our stations gently, obviously, and ultimately some of the sort of minor things around changing doors, door handles, and even light bulbs. The user satisfaction relating to the outcome of that was fantastic, and we're starting to get some real buy-in through our workforce. The second, which was OPEX, which has been affectionately termed as West Yorkshire Fire Rescue Service Amazon, for want of a better word. Sorry, Councillor Anderson, have you got a question?
Oh, I was just putting my hand up for later when you finished.
Oh, sorry. Would you actually carry on?
Please.
Sorry. Yeah, so OPEX, which has been affectionately called our Amazon, essentially the way in which we requisition equipment, supplies, whatever that may be across the organisation, again, was quite slow. It took a long time for things to arrive and ultimately process, and we've seen a reduction from 12 days on average to 4 days, which has been fantastic. That's improved our management of stock through the introduction of the OPEX platform, and it's been a real positive in terms of particularly station-based and departments that work away from training centre and headquarters in terms of how they receive their equipment, which has been great. The FS 100, which is the expenses claim form, again, something that I'm relatively new to the organisation, but it was really painful, if I'm honest, with regards to how we put our expenses in. That's been changed. It's far more efficient in the way that we do things now, less of a burden on finance, and allows us to ultimately have a library of our data expenses so we can review that individually, which has been really important. And then the last one, which is the EMOC replacement. Members may be aware of me talking about this in the past, so the way in which we record competency of our operational staff is critical. So we need to make sure that individuals that are on our stations are training effectively and recording those processes effectively as well. The previous process was something called an EMOC. Some of the feedback that we got, that crews would go out and do an hour's worth of training, and ultimately would take probably an hour to ultimately input that training on the dashboard that we had before. We were finding things that people were doing workarounds, and in terms of the environment that we were training on, it wasn't particularly great. The Smarter Working team worked with the organisation to change that, or fundamentally change that, into what is a new competency dashboard that's removed some overly bureaucratic processes and made the speed of recording far easier. And probably most important, something that we're really proud of, as part of the HMI, they identified that this was an area of concern. Therefore, we appointed Kirklees Council to do an audit on it, which returned a limited assurance. As a result of that, and a result of the work that we've done with Smarter Working, we've now received a substantial assurance from Kirklees Audit, which is fantastic. Probably more importantly, in terms of how we record now, it's gone from potentially an hour or up to an hour to record training to between sort of 2 to 15 minutes, which is fantastic, which has allowed us to release a number of hours to do far more important work, such as community initiatives, etc., and more training. In addition to that, the old platform, which was the EMOC, cost approximately £7,000 a year. Whilst we will be removing that, that was another cost saving. In terms of the additional work streams that we're now involved in, it's around assuring our station assurance practices, which has need doing to align them together. It's around looking at our equipment management processes and also our performance management framework. So Smarter Working team are embedded within the performance management framework to improve our mindset around how we manage performance moving forward. And probably one of the most other important things is that the education piece. So the Smarter Working team are working with every department on not just a needs basis, but through our service assurance policy to ensure that each department has got the time to be able to go through their processes and work with the Smarter Working. In terms of financial implications, the tender process to appoint the consultant was ICE consultant, approximately, which was £111,000. So whilst it was difficult and whilst the process was never around potentially cost savings, it was around improving our capacity and quality of work. It has received a number of cost savings, which are in the paper, particularly around the reactive repairs, which has seen a reduction, as I said earlier, in external contractors and the £30,000 financial year improvement. Whilst we no longer we don't work with ICE consultants, they are an approved delivery partner that we can call upon should we need to, but ultimately we're confident that the training, the education and the embedment of the efficiency work that we've done is now in place where we can drive that forward ourselves. In terms of the human resource and diversity implications, the inequality impact assessments were completed efficiently throughout. Health and safety and well-being, the reducing of improving the capacity within the departments has seen a positive improvement in both health and well-being, and also the reactive repairs at a number of stations have seen an improvement in our decontamination areas across stations, which has been fantastic. Environmental implications, obviously the lack of or the reduction in duplication leading to less waste, and particularly in terms of vehicle use, has been a real positive. With regards to our Your Fire and Rescue Service priorities, clearly it links to 3 of them with specific attachment to the innovative and smarter working throughout the service. With regards the next steps, as I've said, it's around embedding the way in which we do the smarter working and lean methodology across the whole organisation and driving that improvement as we move forward. And happy to take questions, Chair.
Thank you, Matt. So I'll open it up to questions, but I'll take Councillor Anderson first, getting in there very quick.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of the work that you've described has been done by the personnel within the fire service area themselves, and I've been involved with things in the past in my own career, looking at leaner and smarter ways of working, and a lot of the work is done by the staff looking at different ideas and putting those into practice. Do you think this could have been achieved without spending £111,000 on consultancy to save what looks like 30,000? Now I know there'll be a lot of hidden cost savings that you can't quantify, but it just seemed, out of proportion, really. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Anderson. Yeah, I agree. It was a lot of money. It was deemed that we didn't have the in-house experience to be able to do that. And I appreciate your comments around some of the cost savings are not financial. It's around the user experience and the staff satisfaction around the number of the processes that we put in place has alleviated that, particularly around the frustration. So for instance, the EMOC recording, it's around us being able to spend more time doing the things that we need to do, particularly in the communities that we serve, improving the health and well-being of the communities, and we're able to do that far easier now due to the reduction in the sort of bureaucracy around recording of things as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the report reads very well, I think, until we get to the first bit of section 8, when it actually gets to the finances, and then that makes me worry a bit. To follow on from what Councillor Anderson's just said, is that the return on this doesn't seem to be very great financially. So how are we going to, in order to learn whether we've actually got a good deal from this scheme or not, how are you proposing to quantify in terms of monetary savings some of the other things which are described in paragraph 8.3 in terms of opportunity costs and the release of staff hours? Because unless we have that, we honestly can't make a judgment as to whether this has been a success or not.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Yes, so as I said right at the start, in terms of the whole ethos of the project, it wasn't around saving financial savings, it was around ensuring that we do things far smarter and allow us to be able to do the core elements of our role better, improve our quality of work through the capacity that we have, and we have release through changing the processes that we have. So in terms of the financial savings, whilst I appreciate that the £111,000 is a significant sum of money, I think in terms of the release of staff to do the core aspects of our role is beneficial. I appreciate that whilst it was never particularly the £30,000 per financial year was never part of the project, we are starting to see those, and I think we'll be able to record those, particularly as we move forward throughout the year.
Yeah, thank you for that. May I just come in after that, Chair? Is that all right?
Okay.
Yeah, just to follow up, I mean, you mentioned that the quality of work has improved and that we've released staff, but where are the measures of this? I mean, how are we assured that the quality of work has improved? Where do I find that information to say, yes, I am now assured that the quality of work has improved? Where do I find the information that says, yes, I can see that so many man hours have been released from doing these jobs onto what the front end of the service? So yeah, I understand what you're saying, but really, without quantifying these things, we're still not in a way to judge whether to assess what you're saying is actually happening. In terms of looking forward, yes, I think you're right. We do need to embed this stuff. So, is it possible to know what the recurring savings will be going forward, both financially and in time saved and in quality of work?
Yeah, Council, without a doubt, yeah, I can provide that information. I think with regards to the way in which we quantified the benefits, it's around the staff surveys and the feedback as a result of embedding the process. So for instance, the staff survey around the EMOCs was around it's far easier to be able to manage that and ultimately be able to do the things that we need to do. Around the reactive repairs, it's around the ownership and the feedback. The staff feedback as a result of that was far more positive. They felt more empowered. Whilst that isn't a cost saving, it was really important, particularly to our staff, to be able to achieve that.
Thank you, Matt. I've said before that I think the estimation of savings that we have made in just a 10-month period for your 30,000 on your reactive repairs, to me, that does seem a little bit underpriced as well, knowing what contractors tend to charge. But I think you've potentially underestimated some costs there, because we haven't been going out for those quotes like we might usually have done. But those savings are obviously going to continue going forward. So that's what we've saved so far. And I think the other bit is where in 6.3, so you've specified 3,500 hours of time on station. Now that is certainly not to be underestimated. So even if you just put a value of £10 an hour on that, you get some idea of some sort of financial. It's not savings as such because there was no cost. But like you say, it's going towards improving work, spending your time doing more useful things than just filling in paperwork. So, that will also be ongoing, because once it's in and embedded, that's there going forward. So I welcome the things that are being done and making it work more efficiently. But it's the benefits to the staff and the morale and the ethos is also not to be underestimated. We can't put a value on that, but that is really key as well. So thank you. Councillor Tully.
No, I'm sorry, Chair. You've just answered my question. You can't always put a value on, and going forward. And if it makes it, if we can put a provision in place, and I accept what you're saying about the costings and but going forward, I'm sure this money will be recouped. But you can't always put a value on, and if it makes it easier and makes it more easy to work for our work staff, and we provide everything, can't have everybody sometimes wants to put a price on everything. And if it's going to make it easy, and you've already touched on the 3,500 hours and other issues going forward, and Matt has given his report as well. So I think we just need to be a little bit more sort of relaxed a bit, and let's see where we go with it. And they've offered to provide extra information going forward and see how it works out. But if it helps and is better, a better system for our workers, well, I think we need to take that on board.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tully. Councillor Harrand. Councillor Harrand, you're still on mute.
Well, I'd read all this before at the meeting, and I really didn't need anybody to come through and read it all out to me. In the interest of leaner working, it would have been better if we just assumed we'd read it and we didn't need it paraphrasing. Two other things. I don't know what EMOC means. Everybody else presumably knows. I don't. And what expertise did ICE have? I don't know who they are. That wasn't available to our senior management.
So, Councillor Harrand, apologies. EMOC is a competency recording dashboard. Apologies for not putting what that actually is in there. Appreciate that. Sometimes there's an assumption which shouldn't be there. With regards to the ICE consultants, unfortunately, I'm not sure because I wasn't here at that time, but ultimately the feedback that we've got as a result of the working with ICE has been fantastic. The relationship we have with them and the support that they gave us, particularly around embedding the sort of leaner methodology and de-risking some of our projects that we have in place.
Well, perhaps just to open up, what were these people able to contribute that we didn't have internally?
Yeah, through you, Chair, if I may. Excuse me. It was the skill set that we bought for them was the process engineering piece of work, whereby we looked at the pieces of work very systematically in a very structured way and take them apart, map them out. I'm not sure whether members ever got to see the work that was done in one of the classrooms where each of these structures, each of these processes was pulled apart literally step by step and mapped out. It's just a very technical way of working that isn't in common use within the fire and rescue service, and it was a skill that we've learned, and I think, as Matt has already alluded to, something that we've applied to other processes as we disassemble them, look at them, and then reassemble them in a more lean and straightforward way.
And who did this? Who were ICE? What was their fire service background?
So again, ICE were a company that specialise in this area of work. My recollection from the initial meeting with them is they have worked with other fire and rescue services as well. But I think it's important to say that ICE didn't just come in and do this to us. They came in and did this with us, and what they've left us with is some transferable stuff. So as they've done this piece of work and educated and upskilled our staff, we now have a cohort of staff who are able to do this piece of work, to take process apart, work through it logically, and then reassemble it for us as well.
Thank you, that's reassuring. We won't have to buy this external experience again.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Donovan.
Thanks, Chair. Maybe just for purposes of any public watching, I think it's really important actually that this report is here today. It shows our level of openness and transparency, and certainly it's created lots of questions and comments. So I think highly important that Matt's taken us through this paper today, because members of the public don't get to see this in any other forum. I was just going to comment to say, I think other people have sort of alluded to some of this stuff, that the cost of the consultant was a one-off cost, not to be incurred again. Yet the savings on the repair side of the bills are just over £30,000 per year. So in 3 and a bit years, if we look at it in pounds, shilling and pence, we will recoup the spend on that consultant. But I think it is important, Councillor Tate and Councillor Tully have mentioned, that with a fire authority out, we're not a commercial operation. It's not always about pounds, shillings and pence. We don't get paid per safe and well visit or per fire that we put out. This is about process and, as it says, smarter, leaner working, something that the government certainly want us to do and something that the HMI want us to do. So I think it's staggering on one level, the amount of stuff that we've been able to chew off here, and make a better experience for the people that work for us, and ultimately make a better experience for the public that we're here to protect.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donovan. Is there any other comments, questions? No. Okay. Well, this report is. Sorry, Steve. Did you say something there?
So the report is noted.
Move the report. So I was just going to say it is for noting, but I'd like to welcome some of the progress that's being made and some of the savings made, and especially to the improvements in the ethos and the morale that's going around with the added benefit. So thank you very much, and we look forward to further updates in future. So we're moving to a private session now, because the next subsequent reports are exempt items under the Local Government Act 1972. So it's paragraph 3, financial or business affairs. So could somebody confirm that the recording has stopped, please?